Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of his ship, looking out at the stars. 3 months ago, he never thought he would be here, flying through space with his crew on humanity's first real mission to meet other alien races. The ship was called the UES Discovery, and it was the best Earth had to offer. But compared to the alien ships they had seen, it felt small and simple. Jake turned to look at his crew working at their stations. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez sat at the sensor controls, her dark hair pulled back as she focused on the readings coming in. She was young but smart, one of the best sensor operators Earth had ever trained. Next to her, Dr. Alex Carter was reading through files about the different alien species they had met so far. The doctor was excited about every new form of life they discovered. Sometimes too excited for Jake's taste. Commander Lisa Bennett stood near the weapons station, always ready for trouble. She had been a soldier before joining the space program, and old habits died hard. Her blonde hair was cut short, military style, and her blue eyes never missed anything that might be dangerous. "Captain," Maya called out, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship's engines. "I'm getting strange readings from the asteroid field ahead of us. There's something there that doesn't look natural." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the screen. The asteroids were big chunks of rock floating in space, but Maya was right. Some of them had patterns that looked too organized, too planned, to be natural. "Are you sure these are just rocks?" Jake asked. Maya shook her head. "Sir, I'm seeing metal structures inside some of them. And there are energy readings coming from several locations. These aren't just asteroids. Someone built something here." Dr. Carter jumped up from his seat and hurried over to look at the data. His eyes grew wide with excitement. "Captain, these readings suggest there's life inside those asteroids. Not just life, but a whole civilization." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In 3 months of traveling through space, they had met 17 different alien species. Most of them were more advanced than humans, with better technology and bigger ships. Some had been friendly, others had just ignored them. But they had all been part of something called the Galactic Council, a group that made decisions for most of the galaxy. "Take us in closer, Maya," Jake ordered. "But keep our distance. Power up the shields, but don't charge weapons unless I say so." As the Discovery moved closer to the asteroid field, more details became clear on their screens. The asteroids weren't solid rock at all. They were hollow, like giant shells, and inside each one was a complex structure that looked like a city. Plants grew along the walls, and Jake could see lights moving through what looked like tunnels and rooms. "Captain," Dr. Carter said softly, "they're beautiful. Look at how they've built their homes inside these rocks. It's like they've turned space debris into living cities." Through the ship's powerful cameras, they could see the aliens themselves. They were tall and thin, with long arms that moved like tree branches in the wind. Their skin was pale green, and they had large eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. They moved gracefully through their rock cities, tending to plants and operating machines that looked like they were grown rather than built. "Sir," Maya said, "I'm picking up their communication signals. They know we're here, and they seem scared. Their ships are moving away from us." Jake frowned. "Scared? Why would they be scared of us? Our ship is smaller than theirs." A new voice came through the ship's communication system. It was mechanical, like a computer trying to speak, but they could understand the words. "Unknown vessel, please state your intentions. We mean no harm to your people. We ask only to be left in peace." Jake picked up the microphone. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Discovery. We're explorers from a planet called Earth. We don't want to hurt anyone. We're just curious about your people." There was a long silence. Then the voice came back, sounding surprised. "You wish to speak with us? Not to take our resources or claim our territory?" "No," Jake said firmly. "We just want to learn about you." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "No one has ever said that to us before. Please, follow our guide ship to our main habitat. Elder Zephyr will speak with you." A small ship emerged from one of the larger asteroids. It looked like it was alive, with a smooth surface that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Jake had never seen anything like it. "Follow that ship, Maya," he said. "Dr. Carter, start preparing your first contact protocols. We're about to meet someone new, As they flew deeper into the asteroid field, Dr. Carter worked to learn everything he could about these new aliens. Captain, according to their transmissions, they call themselves the Cathara. They've been living in this asteroid field for over 200 years. 200 years? Lisa asked. That's a long time to hide in rocks. Maybe they're not hiding, Jake said thoughtfully. Maybe this is just how they choose to live. Guideship led them to a massive asteroid, much larger than the others. As they got closer, Jake could see it was hollow like the rest, but this one was different. It was like a city and a garden combined, with towers that looked like they were grown from living wood and pools of water that reflected strange, beautiful lights. Captain Maya said, "They're opening a docking bay for us. Looks safe, but it's unlike anything in our manuals." Jake nodded. "Take us in. And everyone remember, we're guests here. These people have been kind enough to invite us into their home." As the Discovery settled into the docking bay, Jake could see Cathara people. Gathering to watch them, they moved slowly, gracefully, and their large eyes seemed full of curiosity and something else. Fear, maybe, or sadness. "Dr. Carter, you're with me," Jake said. "Maya, Lisa, monitor everything and keep the ship ready. If something goes wrong, I want to be able to leave quickly." Jake and Dr. Carter put on their spacesuits and walked out of their ship. The air in the docking bay was breathable for humans, according to their instruments. But they weren't taking any chances on their first meeting. A group of Cathara approached them. The one in front was older than the others, with skin that had more silver mixed with the green and eyes that seemed to hold great wisdom. "I am Elder Zephyr," the alien said through a device that translated his words into English. "Welcome to our home. We are honored by your visit, though we do not understand why you have come." Jake removed his helmet, showing trust. The air smelled like flowers and clean water. "Elder Zephyr, we came because we detected your civilization and wanted to meet you. We're new to space travel, and we're trying to learn about all the different people who live among the stars." Elder Zephyr's eyes widened with what looked like surprise. "We truly wish only to learn. You do not want our resources or our territory," Jake said. "We want to understand your people, your culture, your way of life. We think there's a lot we could learn from each other." The elder's long arms trembled slightly, and Jake wondered if he was upset or excited. "Captain Morrison, in all our years in this galaxy, no one has ever spoken to us as you do now. The great civilizations see us as primitives. We've been ignored, dismissed, sometimes attacked, but never has anyone asked to simply learn about us." Dr. Carter stepped forward, his eyes bright with scientific curiosity.
"Elder Zephyr, you're..."
"Cities are amazing. The way you've adapted to live in space, how you grow your technology instead of building it. It's incredible. How did you develop such methods?" Elder Zephyr looked at the human scientist with something like wonder. "You see beauty in our ways?" "Others have called them backward, inefficient." "They're wrong," Jake said firmly. "What you've built here is remarkable. Any civilization that can create something this beautiful and functional has wisdom worth sharing." For the first time since they had arrived, Elder Zephyr seemed to smile. It was a subtle expression, just a slight change in his large eyes, but Jake could see the emotion behind it. "Come," Elder Zephyr said. "Let me show you our world, and perhaps you can tell us about yours. It has been too long since we had visitors, who came in friendship rather than conquest." As they walked deeper into the living city, Jake felt something stirring in his chest. These people had been ignored and dismissed by the galaxy's great powers, but they had created something wonderful here. They deserved better than to be forgotten. He didn't know it yet. But this meeting would change everything, not just for the Cathara, but for the entire galaxy. Elder Zephyr floated nervously in the council chamber as he waited for the human visitors to arrive. His long arms moved like branches in a gentle wind, a sign that he was thinking deeply about something important. In all his long life, no representatives from any of the big galactic civilizations had ever asked to meet with the Cathara people formally. Most aliens either ignored them completely or treated them like animals that could not think. The chamber itself was beautiful in the way only Cathara architecture could be. The walls were alive, made from plants that had been trained to grow in specific patterns. Soft blue light came from flowers that bloomed along the ceiling, and the air smelled like fresh rain and growing things. Water flowed quietly through, channels carved into the floor, creating a peaceful sound that helped the Cathera think clearly. When the humans entered the chamber, Elder Zephyr was struck by how different they looked from other galactic species. They were smaller than the mighty Vaxari warriors, who stood nearly 3 meters tall and wore armor that could stop plasma bolts. They did not glow with inner light like the ethereal collective, whose bodies seemed to be made of pure energy. The humans looked solid, real, and their eyes held something that Elder Zephyr had never seen from outsiders before. It looked like genuine interest, maybe even kindness. Captain Jake Morrison walked forward first, moving slowly to show he meant no harm. Behind him came Dr. Alex Carter, whose eyes were wide as he looked around the living chamber. The doctor seemed amazed by everything he saw, from the growing walls to the flowing water to the soft lights overhead. Jake spoke first, and his words were translated into the musical language of the Cathara. Elder Zephyr, thank you for allowing us into your home. We have spent the last day learning about your people, and we are impressed by what we have seen. We want to understand why the galaxy has ignored such a remarkable civilization.
Elder.
Zephyr felt his heart beat faster. No one had ever called the Cathara remarkable before. Captain Morrison, you are kind to say such things. But we know what we are in the eyes of the galaxy. We are weak. We have no powerful weapons to threaten others. We have no rare minerals that the great civilizations want to steal. We have no strategic territories that could help someone win wars. We are simply alive, and in the galaxy's judgment, that is not enough to matter. Dr. Carter stepped forward, and Elder Zephyr could see excitement in his human eyes. But that's not true. At all. Your biotechnology is extraordinary. The way you have learned to live in these asteroids. How your ships are alive and can heal themselves. The way you grow your cities instead of building them with dead metal. It's brilliant. Why has no one else recognized this? Elder Zephyr's long arms trembled with emotion he had not felt in many years. Because, Dr. Carter, we cannot give the great civilizations what they want. The Vaxari Empire wants slaves and soldiers. You're peaceful people who do not like to fight. The hegemony wants rare metals and energy sources. We live simply and take only what we need from the asteroids around us. The ethereal collective wants trading partners who can make them richer. We have little to trade except our knowledge, and they have never asked for that. Jake sat down on one of the living chairs that grew from the floor, showing that he was comfortable in the Cathara home. Tell us about your history with these civilizations. Help us understand what has happened to your people. Elder Zephyr was quiet for a long moment, gathering his thoughts. Then he began to speak, and his voice carried the sadness of centuries. 50 years ago, the Vaxari Empire came to our space. They said they needed resources for their war machine. They did not ask permission. They did not offer payment. Simply took 12 of our colony worlds and stripped them bare, taking all the metals and leaving behind dead rock. When we tried to protest, they said we were not truly intelligent, just animals that had learned to use tools. Dr. Carter looked angry when he heard this. Jake's face was hard and cold. Elder Zephyr continued his story. The hegemony came next, 20 years later. They studied us for months, taking measurements and samples. Then they published a report saying we were non-sentient primitives who could not really think or feel.
Oh.
They said our cities were just complex animal nests, no different from what insects might build. They recommended that our space be open to colonization by more advanced species. That's horrible, Jake said quietly. What about the ethereal collective? They claimed to be peaceful and wise. Elder Zephyr made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was bitter and sad. The ethereal collective has refused every request. We have made for basic trade agreements. They say we have nothing of value to offer. When we asked to send students to their universities, they said our minds were too simple to understand advanced concepts. We offered to share our biotechnology. They said primitive methods had no place in modern civilization. Suddenly, Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez's voice came through Jake's communication device. She sounded worried and urgent. Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our location. Signatures match Vaxari Empire vessels. There are at least 20 ships, and they're coming in fast. Elder Zephyr's skin went pale, almost white with fear. They have returned. Every few decades, the Vaxari come back to take more resources from our space. They never ask. They never pay. They just take what they want and leave. Commander Lisa Bennett's voice joined Maya's on the communication channel. Captain, the lead Vaxari ship is sending us a message. Their commander is demanding that we move our ship out of their way immediately. Jake stood up, and Elder Zephyr could see something change in the human's expression. His eyes became hard like steel, and his voice was steady and strong.
What
exactly are they planning to take this time? Elder Zephyr pointed toward the chamber's viewing wall, which became clear like glass to show the space outside. They come for the young colonies on the outer edge of our territory. There are 3 habitat asteroids there, home to nearly 50,000 of our people. Vaxari will force them to leave, then strip mine the asteroids for metals. Dr. Carter looked shocked. They're going to make 50,000 people homeless just to get some metal? Yes, Elder Zephyr said sadly. And there is nothing we can do to stop them. Our ships are not made for war. Our weapons are designed only to break apart asteroids for mining, not to fight other civilizations. We are helpless. Communication device. Lisa, what's the Vaxari commander saying exactly? Lisa's voice came back hard and angry. He says the Cathara are unprotected primitives and fair game under galactic salvage laws. He's telling us to move aside or be fired upon. He says Earth has no business interfering in established Vaxari territory. Jake looked at Elder Zephyr, and the Cathara leader saw something in the human's eyes that he had never seen from any outsider before. It was the look of someone who was ready to fight for others, even if those others were strangers. Elder Zephyr, Jake said carefully, if the Terran Federation were to offer protection to your people, would you accept it?
Elder Zephyr felt it.
Hart stopped for a moment. Captain Morrison, you have known us for only one day. Why would you risk your lives for people you barely know? Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he spoke, and his words would later be remembered as the moment. Everything changed, because it's the right thing to do. Because every civilization deserves the chance to live in peace. And because someone needs to stand up to bullies, no matter how big they are. Dr. Carter nodded firmly. Elder Zephyr, your people have created something beautiful here. You've learned to live in harmony with your environment, to grow rather than destroy, to create rather than take. The galaxy needs more of that, not less. Elder Zephyr felt tears in his large eyes. In 200 years of hiding in the asteroid field, no one had ever offered to help his people. No one had ever stood between the Cathara and those who would hurt them. Captain Morrison, he said slowly, if you are truly willing to help us, then yes. The Cathara would be honored to accept the protection of Earth. Jake touched his communication. Device again, Lisa. Open a channel to the Vaxari commander. Channel open, sir. Jake's voice carried clearly through the ship's communication system, broadcasting to both the Vaxari fleet and the Cathara colonies. Vaxari commander, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Federation. The Cathara people are now under Earth's protection. You will not attack their colonies, will not take their resources. You will leave their space immediately. The Vaxari commander's response came back filled with anger and disbelief. Impossible. Earth has been in galactic politics for only 3 months. You cannot claim protection over established salvage territories. Move aside, or we will move you aside. Jake's response was calm but firm. Lisa, power up all weapon systems. Target the lead Vaxari ship. Elder Zephyr watched in amazement as the human captain prepared to fight an entire fleet to protect people he had just met. Around the galaxy, sensors picked up the confrontation and began broadcasting it to every major civilization. For the first time in galactic history, someone was willing to go to war over the fate of the Forgotten Ones. The Vaxari commander seemed shocked by the human response. You would risk war with the Empire over these primitives? The news of the confrontation between Earth and the Vaxari Empire spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours, every major civilization knew that the newest members of the Galactic Council had just declared war on one of its founding members over what most people considered nothing more than space rocks with delusions on Earth. President Sarah Mitchell sat in the emergency meeting room, surrounded by her top advisors. The room was filled with tension. As reports came in from across the galaxy, Earth's small fleet was scattered across dozens of star systems, exploring and making contact with new civilizations. Only 3 ships were close enough to help Captain Morrison end the discovery. "Madam President," said General Robert Hayes, "Earth's top military commander, we need to recall all our ships immediately. The Vaxxari Empire has over 10,000 warships. We have less than 50. President Mitchell looked tired but determined. General Captain Morrison made the right choice. We cannot abandon people who asked for our help, just because it makes our enemies angry. Admiral Kate Sullivan had been called back from her exploration mission on the Outer Rim. Her ship, the USS Defiance, was Earth's most powerful warship, armed with humanity's best weapons and shields. She stood at the front of the room, her gray hair pulled back and her blue eyes hard with determination. "Madam President," Admiral Sullivan said, "I can reach Captain Morrison's position in 18 hours if I push my engines to their limits. But I need to know if Earth is really ready for war with the Vaxxari Empire." President Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the reports she had read about the Cathara people, about their beautiful cities grown from living plants, about their peaceful ways and their long history of being ignored and hurt by the galaxy's powerful civilizations. "Admiral Sullivan," she said finally, "take your battle group and protect our people. Earth stands by Captain Morrison's decision. The Cathara people asked for our help, and we will give it to them." Meanwhile, in the asteroid field, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Discovery, watching the Vaxxari fleet on his main screen. 20 massive warships hung in space like dark metal spears, each one 3 times larger than his exploration vessel. Their weapons were charged and ready, and their commander was growing more angry with each passing minute. "Captain, Lieutenant," Maya Rodriguez said from her sensor station, "the Vaxxari ships are spreading out into attack formation. They're preparing to move against the Cathara colonies." Commander Lisa Bennett checked her weapons display. "Sir, our shields are at full power, and all weapons are ready. But honestly, if they all attack at once, we won't last more than a few minutes." Dr. Alex Carter had spent the last several hours with Elder Zephyr and the Cathara scientists, learning everything he could about their technology. What he discovered amazed him and gave him an idea that might help them survive. "Captain," Dr. Carter said excitedly, "I've been studying the Cathara biotechnology. I think I understand something the galaxy has completely missed. Their ships aren't just alive, they're incredibly advanced. They can repair themselves, adapt to different situations, and work together like a single organism." Elder Zephyr had come aboard the Discovery to help coordinate the defense of his people. His large eyes were filled with worry, but also with something new, something he had never felt before: hope. "Dr. Carter is correct," Elder Zephyr said in his musical voice. "Our ships are grown, not built. They learn and adapt. But they are not weapons of war. They are tools of life and growth." Jake looked at the alien elder with respect. "Elder Zephyr, we're going to do everything we can to protect your people. But I need to ask you something important. Are you willing to let your ships fight alongside ours?" Elder Zephyr was quiet for a moment. Cathara had been peaceful for so long that many of them had forgotten they could fight when they needed to. But seeing these humans willing to risk their lives for strangers had awakened something in the old leader. "Captain Morrison," Elder Zephyr said slowly, "my people have been peaceful because we chose to be, not because we had to be. If the Vaxxari want to destroy our homes and hurt our families, then yes, we will fight beside you." The Vaxxari commander's voice came over the communication channel, filled with anger and impatience. "Human vessel, this is your final warning. Move aside now, or we will destroy you and take what we came for anyway." Jake picked up the microphone and spoke in a calm, steady voice that carried to every ship in the area. "Vaxxari Commander, this is Captain Morrison. The Cathara people are under the protection of the Terran Federation. We will not move aside. We will not abandon our friends. If you want to hurt them, you'll have to go through us first." Commander's response was immediate. "So be it. All ships, attack the human vessel. Show these primitives what happens when they interfere with the Empire." The battle began with a flash of light as the Vaxxari ships fired their plasma cannons. Jake felt the Discovery shake as energy bolts struck their shields. Warning lights flashed on the bridge, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. Shields down to 70%, Lisa reported. Return fire. The Discovery's weapons responded, sending streams of energy toward the nearest Vaxxer ship. But their shots barely scratched the enemy's heavy armor. Then something unexpected happened. The Cathara ships began to move. At first, they looked like they were running away, which is what everyone expected. But Dr. Carter, who was monitoring their movements, suddenly realized what was really happening. "Captain," he shouted excitedly, "the Cathara ships aren't fleeing, they're surrounding us. Look at the pattern they're forming." On the main screen, Jake could see dozens of living Cathara vessels moving into position around the Discovery. They weren't forming a battle line like human or Vaxxer ships would. Instead, they were creating something that looked almost like a flower. With the Discovery at the center, Elder Zephyr spoke into his own communication device, sending instructions. To his people in their musical language, "My ships will protect yours, Captain Morrison. Our hulls can absorb energy weapons and convert the power to strengthen our defenses. Your ship has the strongest weapons. Together, we can hold them off until your reinforcements arrive." The Vaxxer commander seemed confused by the Cathara formation. What are those primitive ships doing? Are they trying to surrender? His confusion turned to shock when the Cathara ships began to glow with absorbed energy from the Vaxxer weapons. Each time a plasma bolt hit one of the living vessels, instead of causing damage, it made the ship stronger and brighter. "Possible," the Vaxxer commander muttered. "Their ships are absorbing our weapons fire." Maya looked up from her sensors with amazement in her voice. "Captain, the Cathara ships are sharing their absorbed energy with us. Our shields are actually getting stronger, not weaker." For the first time in the battle, Jake allowed himself to smile. Lisa target their command ship. Show them what happens when you pick on people smaller than you. Discovery's main weapons fired, powered by energy absorbed from the Vaxxer attack. The beam struck the enemy command ship's shields and punched through them like they were made of paper. The Vaxxer vessel staggered under the impact, its lights flickering. But Jake knew they couldn't hold out forever. The Vaxxer had more ships and would eventually find a way to break through their defenses. He needed Admiral Sullivan to arrive. Soon, or all of them would be destroyed. As if in answer to his thoughts, Maya suddenly looked up with excitement. "Captain, I'm detecting new ships approaching." That's Admiral Sullivan with the Earth Battle Group. On the main screen, 5 human warships appeared out of faster-than-light travel. The EU's Defiance led the group, its weapons already charging for battle. Behind it came the UES Guardian, the UES Warrior, the UES Defender, and the UES Protector. Each ship was larger and more powerful than the Discovery, and together they represented the best Earth had to offer. Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Sullivan. Sorry we're late to the party. What's the situation?" Jake felt relief wash over him. "Admiral, we have 20 Vaxxer ships trying to attack Cathara colonies. The Cathara have been helping us defend. But we're still outnumbered 4-1. Understood, Captain. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Target the Vaxxer vessels and prepare to engage. Today we show the galaxy that Earth protects its friends." The Vaxxer commander seemed stunned by the arrival of more human ships. "Impossible. Earth has only been in space for a few years." "Do they have so many warships?" Admiral Sullivan answered him directly. "Commander, Earth builds ships to protect people, not to conquer them. The Terran Federation formally declares the Cathara people under our protection. Leave their space immediately, or face the consequences." The Vaxxer commander's response was filled with rage. The Empire does not bow to primitives. All ships, destroy the human vessels. Show them the power of the Vaxxer Empire. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Vaxxer ships, designed for overwhelming weaker opponents, found themselves facing an enemy that fought with tactics they had never encountered. The human ships used speed and intelligence instead of brute force. What humanity did not expect was how quickly their decision to protect the Cathara would change everything across the galaxy. Within 2 weeks of the battle with the Vaxxer Empire, Dr. Alex Carter's research papers about Cathara biotechnology were being read by scientists on hundreds of different worlds. The same civilizations that had dismissed the Cathara as primitives were now desperately trying to understand how they had missed such advanced biological engineering. Dr. Carter sat in his laboratory aboard the UES Discovery, surrounded by samples of Cathara technology that Elder Zephyr had willingly shared. His eyes were bright with excitement as he worked to understand how the living ships could repair themselves and how the Cathara cities could grow and adapt to any environment. Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter said as Jake entered the lab, "You need to see this. The Cathara haven't just mastered biotechnology. They've gone beyond anything we thought was possible. Their ships don't just heal themselves. They actually get stronger when they're damaged. And their medical technology could save millions of lives across the galaxy." Jake looked at the organic samples growing in special containers. They pulsed with their own light and seemed to respond to his presence. "How long has the galaxy been ignoring this?" "Centuries," Dr. Carter replied sadly. "The Cathara have been offering to share their knowledge for over 200 years. Every major civilization turned them down because they thought biological technology was primitive compared to machines and computers." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other civilizations were starting to pay attention to what had happened in Cathara space. The ethereal collective, who had always claimed to be wise and enlightened, suddenly found themselves in an embarrassing situation. They had spent decades refusing to trade with the Cathara, calling them too primitive to understand advanced concepts. Now the entire galaxy was learning that the Cathara possessed some of the most advanced technology anyone had ever seen. "High Counselor." Luminara of the ethereal collective floated in her crystal chamber, her energy-based body flickering with what humans might recognize as nervousness. Around her, other collective leaders were debating how to respond to the situation. "We must contact the Cathara immediately," said Counselor Radiance. "Let's offer them full membership in our trading networks. We cannot allow the humans to be the only ones who benefit from this biotechnology." High Counselor Luminara's light dimmed. "And what do you think Elder Zephyr will say when we make that offer? We have ignored his people's requests for basic trade agreements for decades. We called them primitives, and we want to be their friends because we learned they have something valuable." The answer came sooner than expected. When the ethereal collective sent their diplomatic message to Elder Zephyr, his response was polite but firm. The Cathara appreciated the offer. They already had a trading partner who valued them for who they were, not just for what they could provide. They would continue their friendship with humanity. But the real surprise came when other forgotten civilizations began reaching out to Earth's diplomatic ships. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, who had been promoted to commander and given her own ship, the U's Guardian, found herself becoming humanity's unofficial ambassador to the galaxy's overlooked peoples. Her first contact came from a species called the Whisper Folk, who lived on the edge of known space. For years, the major civilizations had dismissed them as having primitive psionics that were barely worth studying. When Commander Rodriguez met with their leader, she discovered the truth was very different. "Commander Rodriguez," said Speaker Silence. "Okay. The leader of the Whisper Folk, we have watched what your people did for the Cathara. We too have been ignored by the great civilizations, though we possess abilities they do not understand." Sat in her ship's meeting room, looking at the strange alien across from her. The Whisper Folk looked almost human, but their skin was pale blue and their eyes were completely white. When they spoke, their voices seemed to come from inside her head rather than through her ears. "Speaker Silence," Maya said carefully. "What kind of abilities do your people have?" The alien smiled, and suddenly Maya could feel emotions that were not her own. Joy, hope, and a deep sadness that seemed to go back generations. "We can share thoughts and feelings across any distance, Commander. What your people call telepathy, we simply call talking. The major civilizations tested us decades ago and said our abilities were too weak to be useful. They were wrong." Felt her excitement growing. How wrong were they? Speaker Silence's white eyes seemed to glow. "Commander, we can coordinate fleets across light years of space with perfect precision. We can share knowledge instantly between any number of minds, can feel the emotions and intentions of others, making us impossible to lie to or surprise. In battle, The hegemony called these abilities primitive because they could not measure them with their machines. Within days of that meeting, Maya was contacted by more forgotten civilizations, the Forge Masters, who lived in asteroid belts, and had been dismissed because they still used primitive metallurgy instead of advanced manufacturing. When Maya visited them, she learned they could create metals stronger than anything the galaxy's advanced civilizations could produce. Using traditional methods that had been perfected over thousands of years, the Star Singers were another revelation. The major civilizations had classified their communication methods as inefficient primitive signals, because they used music and harmony instead of digital transmissions. Maya discovered that the Star Singers had actually developed a way to use quantum entanglement for instant communication across the galaxy, something that even the most advanced civilizations could not do. Each new discovery made it clear that the galaxy had been measuring worth by the wrong standards for centuries. The major civilizations looked for big weapons, rare minerals, and strategic territories. They missed the subtle brilliance of species who had chosen different paths to advancement. But while these new alliances were forming, the Vaxari Empire was not sitting idle. Emperor Krex himself, ruler of the largest military force in the galaxy, was furious about his fleet's defeat by a handful of human ships and some primitive Cathera vessels. Emperor Krex stood in his throne room on the capital world of Vaxar Prime, his massive form covered in the black armor that had become the symbol of his empire's power. Around him, his generals and admirals reported on their preparations for revenge. "My emperor," said General Thorn, "we have assembled the largest fleet in our history, over 500 warships, including 12 of our new super. The humans and their primitive allies will be crushed." Emperor Krex's voice was like thunder when he spoke. "Good. The galaxy must learn that the Vaxari Empire does not accept defeat from inferiors. We have ruled through strength for 1,000 years. These humans think they can protect the weak and change the natural order. We will show them that strength is the only law that matters." Admiral Voss, the Emperor's naval commander, stepped forward. "My Emperor, our intelligence reports suggest that more of the forgotten civilizations are joining with humanity. Should we be concerned about their combined forces?" Emperor Krex laughed, a sound like breaking stone. "Admiral, we have conquered hundreds of worlds and enslaved dozens of species. What can a handful of humans and their primitive friends do against the might of the Empire? They have courage. I will give them that. But courage does not stop plasma cannons or pierce battle armor. Unknown to the Vaxari, however, humanity was not preparing to face them alone. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan was coordinating with leaders from all the newly allied civilizations. The meeting was taking place in Earth's largest space station, and the diversity of the attendees would have amazed anyone who saw it. Elder Zephyr floated near a tank of water that had been specially prepared for him. Speaker Silent sat quietly in a corner, his white eyes closed as he communicated telepathically with whisperfolk across the galaxy. Master Smith, the leader of the Forge Masters, examined human weapons with professional interest. Singer Prime, representing the Star Singers, hummed softly to herself, the sound somehow coordinating communications across light years of space. Admiral Sullivan, Elder Zephyr said in his musical voice, "We have received word that the Vaxari are assembling their largest fleet ever. Emperor Krex intends to destroy all of us as an example to the galaxy." Admiral Sullivan nodded grimly. "We expected this. The question is, are all of our peoples ready to stand together?" Speaker Silence opened his white eyes and spoke his voice, appearing in everyone's minds simultaneously. "Admiral, I have been in contact with our allies across the galaxy. 23 different civilizations have pledged their support. We are no longer alone." Master Smith looked up from the human weapon he was examining. "Admiral Sullivan, my people have been working on improvements to your ship armor and weapons. We may not have large fleets, but we can make your existing ships much more effective." Singer Prime's humming stopped, and she spoke in a voice like chiming bells. "The Star Singers have established instant communication networks between all allied fleets. No matter how far apart we are, we will be able to coordinate our actions perfectly." Admiral Sullivan felt a mixture of pride and worry. The Battle of the Forgotten Worlds began at dawn on Earth's time, though in the darkness of space, dawn was just a concept that humans carried with them to remember home. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared to face each other in the space between the stars. On one side, Emperor Krex had assembled over 500 Vaxery warships. Each vessel was massive, dark, and covered with weapons designed to break planets and destroy entire civilizations. The super dreadnoughts alone were each larger than Earth's biggest cities, their hulls thick enough to survive direct hits from nuclear weapons. On the other side, the alliance of forgotten civilizations had gathered everything they could, 50 human ships. Their hulls now reinforced with Forge-Master metals that were stronger than anything the galaxy had seen before. 200 Cathara living vessels, their organic hulls glowing softly as they prepared to absorb and redirect enemy fire. Hundreds of smaller ships from the Whisper Folk, Star Singers, and 20 other civilizations that had been dismissed as primitives. Admiral Sullivan opened a communication channel to all the Allied ships. Her voice was calm and steady, though. Inside, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Today we fight not for territory or resources, but for something more important. We fight for the right of every civilization to exist in peace and dignity. We fight so that no one will ever again be dismissed as primitive or worthless simply because they are different. Elder Zephyr's voice joined hers from his command ship. The living vessel heart of growth, my friends. For centuries the powerful have taken what they wanted from the weak. Today we show them that the weak are only weak when they stand alone. Together we are strong. Emperor Krex's response came across all communication channels, his voice filled with contempt and rage. Pitiful creatures, you think you're small? Alliance can stand against the might of the Vaxery Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have crushed every enemy we have faced. Today you will learn why the strong rule and the weak serve. The battle began when the Vaxery fleet opened fire with everything they had. Streams of plasma bolts and energy beams lit up space like a deadly light show. The first wave of fire was meant to destroy the Allied fleet in minutes, just as Vaxery forces had done to countless enemies before. But something unexpected happened. The Cathara ships moved forward to absorb the plasma bolts, their living hulls drinking in the energy. And growing brighter and stronger, the Whisper Folk vessels seemed to know exactly where each attack was coming from, dodging with impossible precision. The Star Singer ships hummed with harmonious sounds that somehow disrupted the Vaxery targeting systems. Commander Maya Rodriguez, now commanding a mixed squadron of human and alien vessels, watched in amazement as her allies fought with abilities the Vaxery had never encountered. All ships, follow the Cathara-led vessels. Let them absorb the enemy fire while we target their weapon systems. The Forge-Master ships, though few in number, proved incredibly resilient. Their hulls, made from traditional metals worked with techniques thousands of years old, shrugged off attacks that should have destroyed them. When they fired back, their weapons cut through Vaxery armor like it was made of paper. Emperor Krex watched from his flagship as his overwhelming began to disappear. Impossible. How are these primitives resisting our superior firepower? His Admiral Voss stared at the tactical displays in confusion. My Emperor, their coordination is perfect. It's like they can read our minds and know what we're going to do before we do it. What Admiral Voss didn't know was that Speaker Silence and hundreds of other Whisper Folk were linked telepathically across the entire battlefield. Every Vaxery move was sensed and shared instantly with all Allied ships. The Star Singers maintained perfect communication between all vessels, allowing coordination that seemed impossible to outside observers. Dr. Alex Carter, monitoring the battle from Earth, watched the live feeds with growing excitement. Admiral Sullivan, the alien technologies are working together in ways we never imagined. The Cathara ships are feeding absorbed energy to our weapon systems. The Whisper Folk are providing tactical information faster than any computer could process it. The Star Singers are coordinating movements across the entire battlefield simultaneously. As the battle continued, more Vaxery ships began to fall. The super dreadnoughts, designed to fight conventional enemies, found themselves facing tactics they had no defense against. Cathara vessels would absorb their massive weapons fire, then share that energy with human ships whose improved weapons could punch through the Texter's strongest armor. But the real turning point came when the smaller civilizations revealed abilities that even their new allies hadn't known about. The Shimmerfolk, whose light-bending technology had been dismissed as useless party tricks, made entire squadrons of allied ships invisible to Vaxery sensors. The deep swimmers, who lived in the gas clouds between stars, used their knowledge of space currents to redirect Vaxery missiles back at their own ships. Emperor Krex's flagship shuddered under a direct hit from weapons powered by his own fleet's energy. Around him, his officers reported massive casualties and system failures across the fleet. "My Emperor," Admiral Voss said, his voice shaking, "we've lost over half our ships. Our weapons aren't effective against their coordinated defense. Should retreat and regroup." Emperor Krex's rage was like a physical force. The Vaxery Empire does not retreat from inferiors. Continue the attack. Destroy them all. But the battle was already over, as more Vaxery ships fell or retreated in damage. Admiral Sullivan opened a communication channel to the enemy flagship. "Emperor Krex," she said, her voice carrying to every ship in both fleets. "Your empire has spent 1,000 years taking what it wanted from those 2 weeks to resist. Today, you learned the difference between weakness and kindness. The civilizations you dismissed as primitives have technologies and abilities your empire never dreamed of. Surrender now, and we will allow your remaining ships to return home." Emperor Krex's response was filled with fury and disbelief. "This is impossible. The strong are meant to rule. The weak are meant to serve. This is the natural order, Elder." Zephyr's gentle voice answered him. "Emperor Krex, there is nothing natural about cruelty. The truly strong protect those who need protection. The truly advanced share their knowledge with others. Your empire has confused strength with brutality and advancement with conquest." The final Vaxery super dreadnought exploded in a burst of light that could be seen across the star system. Emperor Krex's flagship, damaged beyond repair, drifted powerless among the debris of his once mighty fleet. The battle was over in 6 hours. The Vaxery Empire, which had ruled through fear for 1,000 years, was broken by an alliance of civilizations they had dismissed as worthless. But the real victory was not military. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. On 1,000 worlds and space stations and colonies that had been under Vaxery control, people began to believe that change was possible. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session on their capital world. For the first time in centuries, they faced a choice between adapting to a new reality or becoming irrelevant. High Counselor Luminara of the Ethereal Collective spoke for many when she said, "The old ways of measuring worth and power have failed. We can either learn from what has happened, or we can be swept aside by the changes that are coming." The vote was closer than many expected, but in the end, practical thinking won over tradition. The Council formally recognized the Terran doctrine of galactic worth, which stated that every civilization's value came from their unique contributions, not from their military power or economic resources. 1 year later, Captain Jake Morrison stood before the reformed Galactic Council as Earth's permanent representative. The assembly hall looked very different now, where once only the major powers had been represented. Now hundreds of civilizations had voices in galactic government. Elder Zephyr floated beside him, no longer the nervous leader of a forgotten people, but the confident representative of the Kithera symbiosis. The Kithera's biotechnology was now being used to heal damaged worlds and create new habitats for growing populations across the galaxy. Speaker Silent sat quietly in the Whisper Folk section, white eyes closed as he maintained telepathic contact with his people across thousands of star systems. The Whisper Folk network had become the galaxy's most reliable communication system, connecting civilizations that had never been able to talk to each other before. Master Smith of the Forge Masters was examining the new alloys that would be used to build the next generation of exploration ships. These vessels would be stronger and more efficient than anything the galaxy had seen, but they would be used for discovery, and diplomacy, not conquest. Jake looked out at the assembly and thought about how much had changed since that first day. When they discovered the Cathara hiding in their asteroid field, the galaxy was still vast and dangerous, but it was no longer a place where the strong simply took what they wanted from the weak. Representatives of the reformed Galactic Council, Jake said, his words translated into hundreds of languages. Today we begin a new chapter in galactic history.